Welcome all to the presentation. I'm Gordon Medlock. I'm a member of the faculty team of the EDD doctoral program at MIU, and we're presenting today on our aspects of our program for you all as faculty to have a better understanding of who we are and what we're doing. So, and students, I understand, as well being here, so and administrators. So it's great to have you all here. I'm delighted to see such a good turnout today. Mike and Lisa, Mike Zwell, who's the director of our program, will be presenting the main substance of our presentation today. Michael, why don't I turn it over to you here? We do have a compressed time frame. We have just 30 to 40 minutes for our presentation to make sure we give time for everybody else. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Michael Zwell, who's the director of the educational doctorate program here at MIU in transformational coaching and leadership. So Mike, take it away.
Thank you all. I am so glad to be here and glad that you are all here, and just appreciate this opportunity that we have together. So I'd like to start by sharing a little bit about me, because it very much relates to what our topic is here. So I am a certified geek. So I started out as a math major and computer science guy. So I come by this social and emotional intelligence stuff honestly. It was not natural for me. But a little bit about my background, because it relates to my development, is very much related to what it is we're talking about here in terms of transformational leadership, emotional intelligence, authenticity. So one of the big moves in my life was when I was 14. My sister, who was 6 years older than I grew up outside Pittsburgh, she stopped by and picked me up and took me to Washington, D.C. in 1963. And I attended the first March on Washington, where Martin Luther King gave his "I Have a Dream" speech. And I remember standing outside the pool outs in front of the Lincoln Memorial, saying, I'm going to dedicate my life to truth and justice. So that's really been an ongoing part of what's important to me, is making a difference in the world and having a world that works for everyone. But being the geek that I was, I went to the University of Chicago. Was at Yale, getting a doctorate in 1973, and I started doing something called re-evaluation counseling, which is basically a peer coaching process focusing on being aware of emotions and releasing emotions. And that changed my life. And I really have focused on freeing people up to be who they can become. But I'm also looking back. I'm an entrepreneur, so I realized I didn't want to be, was not interested in being a faculty member at a traditional university, and I went into business and I learned about cash flow. I was in the state of Washington in a small business, and our business was killed by the volcanic eruption at Mount St. Helens, which put we had the ash going over and just basically stopping much of the state. So I went into executive search, but what I learned from the co-counseling, which is reevaluation counseling, is I learned how to listen. And I was immediately successful in executive search because I learned how to listen. And I learned and I could hear people and hear what they really wanted and could live from that perspective. I moved back to Chicago in 1985. And in 1987, I got involved in our foundation, and I went through what we call the Transformation Lab program, which is part of what we've brought into the EDD, which is to help people. It's a program where you actually have weekly assignments around sort of life assignments, getting in touch with what your emotions are. There's an assignment of saying what it is you want. There's an assignment of asking for things. There's an assignment of getting things. So these are really ways to be with ourselves and be with others. I got involved while I maintained my search practice. 1990, I got involved with competencies because I wanted to make a difference in companies. So I've been working with companies intensely since 1980. And I learned to, even though it wasn't in my background, I learned to love business and how do businesses work. And discovered that the skills of being able to be with other people and to see other people and understand other people is actually the key to business. That it's not so much about the technical skills. The technical skills are like the table stakes to get into the game. But what really makes a difference is who I am, who you are, how I get to see you, and how I get to interact with you. So I started volunteering in leadership for with the foundation, and in 1991 we formed a leadership group of 9 of us who were people in business, bringing to bear what it is that we learned. And that leadership group has been meeting every 3 weeks for 2 or 3 hours a week now for 33 years. Several of those people grew their businesses, sold their businesses, and donated millions of dollars to what allowed us to form the Wright Graduate University for the realization of human potential, which is the application of these skills of how to relate to people and bringing that together with the theories behind it in order to make the difference in the world that we want to make. So, so what we've really learned is about how to be emotionally present in the here and now so that our creative intelligence flows and we can facilitate the flow of the creative intelligence of others. This is what authenticity is about, and this is what transformational leadership is about. Again, the technical skills are just are really the table stakes of what allows us to get into the game, but it's not what causes success for almost all jobs. It's not about that. I keep admitting people as they come in, so that so the essence of what we're doing is really allowing people to be themselves with this sort of firm, belief. And with our foundation, we've worked with thousands of people. And it works pretty much all the time around this idea of we are wanting people to become who they can become. And as we've been working with our graduate students over the last 7 or 8 months, and bringing together the science of creative intelligence and social emotional intelligence, it's a little confusing because it's SCI and SEI, and bringing them together, this idea that we are, when we are infants, we don't have consciousness except for the unbounded consciousness that we have. And then we are, our minds and our bodies form this vessel that is limited. And we see ourselves as basically through our senses, and then we are going to understand the world, and then we become this sense of self, and we think that's who we are. When in fact, this is, we are not our beliefs. We have beliefs, We are not our feelings. We have feelings. But that sense of who we are and continuing to expand that and to increase our knowledge and awareness of ourselves and our relationship with the world. From my perspective, we are standing on the shoulders of Skip Alexander. And we are, Skip was with MIU until he died, a Ph.D. in psychology from Harvard, who was, a big player in bringing together individual development, the development of self and the development of consciousness. So, that's what we are working and what we are doing here. So just a little bit more background and context. So we had this experiential program began in the early 1980s. Gordon Medlock, who is here, who introduced this whole program today, was involved at the very beginning of it. I got involved in 1980, 86, 87. And we've had this program that just works by helping people increase their social and emotional intelligence towards living the life of meaning and purpose and becoming who they can become. We decided to create a university because we wanted to have a program which we developed, and I was a co-founder of it, that we started in 2008, called the Wright Graduate University for the Realization of Human Potential, and developed a master's degree and a doctorate in that. Highly successful in terms of bringing together not just the experiential side, but also what is the theoretical foundation? What is the foundation in terms of understanding? We have developmental psychology. We have Adlerian psychology, which is Alfred Adler, who is a contemporary of Freud. We have existentialism. We have humanistic psychology. We have learning theory. We have neuroscience and other research. How do we bring all, and we discovered if you bring all these together along with that emotional awareness and understanding, what happens is that people are truly empowered to make a difference in their world. Now, I've worked with, since I've been working with companies my whole life, I worked with Citicorp for 10 years. I worked with American National Can for 7 years. I helped change the process by which principals were hired and evaluated in the Chicago public school system. It was a multi-year project. The technical skills to do that are the easy part. Working with the Chicago Public Schools, where I had 3 different entities, the administration, the Principals Association, which is the union, and every school has a local school council, the local school councils. They would not sit down together. They had no trust in the other 2 parties. Bringing them together to work together. It's all about the skills of social and emotional intelligence. So it's the core of what transformational leadership is about. And its intellectual understanding is a tiny part of the process. What we've learned working with our EDD students is that the science of creative intelligence is usually helpful, but not sufficient. In the ability to work with others and to see others and see who they are and see and be able to connect with them as we're connecting with ourselves. There's so much that goes on inside of us that we are not that we can increase our awareness of, so that we can make a difference in the world. We focus a lot on coaching. we could call it transformational coaching, and we tend to call it emergence coaching because the word transformation has been misused and used in so many different ways. So there are colleges that have it on their main on the home page of their website that says, come here and transform. Well, that's not what we're talking about. And the overall perspective that we're looking at is that each of us, in those first few years of life, as we take in sensory information and we see, who am I and what's my relationship to the world? And how do we know that? Well, we know that through whatever our early upbringing was. That, if I had two parents, what was their relationship like? How did they relate to me? If I had a single parent, what was that like? If I was a middle child, what was my relationship with my siblings? All this helps determine how we see the world, and we develop a sense of this is how the world is, this is how the world operates, and this is who I am, and this is how I adapted to that world. And that adaptation, most human beings, what we do is that we live self-fulfilling prophecies, is that we base how we relate to the world based on those early years. So that tends to be, and even what we have as our identity isn't who we really are. It's who we think we are, but that's the sum of how we adapted to this world. This might be a little challenging for some people to hear, but one of our sort of advanced students at our foundation made this comment a couple years ago. He's a devout Muslim, very successful in business, and he made this comment, and he said, I realized that I'm Muslim because my parents were Muslim. And the profundity of saying that is that who I think I am is who I think I am because of what happened to me in the early, who my parents were. And so, and we're all coming from that place. So this concept of emergence is a continual, ongoing expansion of what's possible for us, who I am, who I can be. What are the limiting beliefs that I've been operating from that I grew from? And to expand those into possibilities. So, and this is an ongoing process. Another key aspect of this has to do with emotions. Now, when we started the EDD here, a number of people had a reaction to, well, all emotions are good. Well, we've listened to a video of Maharishi being asked about, what's the relationship between emotions and intellect? And he says very clearly, emotions are primary. Emotions are incredibly important. So the object here is not to dwell on anything in the past, but to really be fully aware, emotionally present in the present moment. And that if I'm not fully with my emotions now and my intellect, talking with Fred Travis and understanding that we have two circuits in the brain. We have the emotional circuit that goes to our amygdala and other places, and then that goes to our prefrontal cortex. And we have the cognitive circuit. And what we want to be able to do is to have full access to both circuits so that we can be fully in the present and interacting in the present based on everything that we know, to fully be with ourselves and fully be with others. This applies one-on-one on coaching, as we define as emergence coaching, is being fully present in the here and now to facilitate the creative intelligence of our clients and facilitate our own emergence, our own creative intelligence simultaneously. So this is what we are after doing. So so we had an EDD at our previous university, very successful. But we weren't successful at, we were too small a school. And we got really, really hit hard by the pandemic. So we decided last year to close our university. And what you do in the university, you do a teach out. And we were going to do it ourselves, but we made contact with the senior leadership at MIU who kindly offered to do our teach out for us. And one of the things that we said to them is, delighted to have you do our teach out, but we actually have something to offer you that would take you hundreds of thousands of dollars and years to develop, that we're happy to give to you on a silver platter. And I remember our first meeting with John Hagelin. You know, he said he was just so pleased to discover another university whose foundational core was consciousness. And that's what brought us together. And then in meeting with Scott Harriet and Vicki Alexander Harriet and Dennis Heaton and Yung Shang and a couple others, it began this process with us developing, bringing this EDD to MIU. And what we're bringing together really are three different things that work beautifully together. You know, on the one hand, the first and foremost is the science of creative intelligence. Along with that is social and emotional intelligence. So we have, we call it an SEI lab, a social emotional intelligence laboratory, that we do every Saturday for 2 hours with our students. And they are doing this transformation lab that we've been doing for 40 years of taking on assignments to get in touch with themselves and to learn and grow. You're constantly in this process of learning, growing, and developing. Developing your own internal emotional intelligence. You know, one of the things that in the world of, so we are very much in the world of coaching. I was the president of the Graduate School Alliance for Education and Coaching, which is an alliance of universities globally that have graduate coach education. Gordon is the director of research for that alliance. So, you know, we're in the world of coaching. And coaching means many different things, by the way. Coaching can be helping people improve their health habits, which is also coaching. But for us, coaching is based on this act of becoming, of having people become who they can become. And this is, to me, this is really what authenticity is about, is this act of becoming. And by the way, we often define authenticity as being true to who we're becoming, not true to who I am, but true to who we're becoming. And transformational leadership is this taking this one to many as opposed to one to one, which is what coaching is. So in the process, so one leg of what we're doing, which is core, is SCI. Another is the act of your own development, which is the experiential portion. And the third is the theoretical portion. This is the understanding developmental psychology, Adlerian psychology, understanding what happens emotionally to us, understanding organizational development, understanding organizations, understanding how groups work and what is happening in groups. We live with blinders on as to what happens in a group. We don't see the vying for leadership that happens. We don't see the alliances that form. So we have a course, you know, one block focusing on understanding the element of what happens in the group. So I'm just giving you the sort of overall perspective One of the things that we've discovered is that this works. It works to have the best, most intimate relationships that we can have. It works to make the difference in the world that needs to happen. We have, so in the EDD, just to give you an example, we have, so an EDD is a doctorate in education. And I know it's a relatively new degree here at MIU. So the PhD, a doctorate in philosophy, doesn't mean you become a philosopher. It's a degree that means that at a doctoral level, you are conducting new research. You're adding to the field of knowledge, whatever you're in. The EDD doesn't mean you're focused on education. What it means, it's the practitioner degree. It's a degree, so you do a dissertation, but here the dissertation is demonstrating doctoral level knowledge and skill to practice. So we are developing scholar practitioners. So you can see Lisa Sanden on the screen. Lisa did her dissertation on what's called emotional labor. She is a Montessori expert consultant, works with Montessori schools all over the country. She did her dissertation on the gap between what goes on inside the teacher. So I'm coming to the Montessori school, and I had an upsetting morning, but how I have to be with the students. So that gap between how she feels and how she has to deal with the students. Another example, we had a woman who was a fundraiser who got our master's degree, and she didn't seem to have that many, she wasn't that strong interpersonally, but she went on to say she's committed to getting the doctorate. And she continued to develop herself. She is now the vice president for development. That is a top fundraising job at the largest healthcare hospital system in Chicago. This works. So this ability to really be present to yourself and present to others. One of the phrases that was developed by our CEO that I consider one of the most potent things I can think of is what we want for people is to be accurately seen in the here and now with positive regard, consistently and unconditionally. We want people to be accurately seen in the here and now with positive regard, consistently and unconditionally. And to the extent that we can do that, people will naturally emerge and develop and good things will happen. So we have a new cohort starting for the EDD starting in the fall. We have a number of people who've applied already. We're looking for a cohort, 2 cohorts. My personal goal is to make whatever difference we can make in MIU to really bring social and emotional intelligence into this beautiful university. So with that, I'm going to stop and pass it on to, I think, Lisa, you're going to talk next about the application for you. So thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. That was beautiful. Mike has, while I'm one of the professors in the program, Mike has really asked me to speak about from the perspective of being a graduate of the program and being a student, having been a student in this program. When I first started, actually in our master's program at our previous university, I'd been a school consultant for about 5 years. And in retrospect, I realized that I had been more devoted to being liked and being likable than I had been devoted to being effective. And so I engaged in our master's, and then I started our doctoral program, and I really started to learn about what it means to be effective and what it means to use my emotional intelligence to be effective. So about, I don't know, some period of time, a couple of years, a year maybe into the doctoral program, I get sent to a school in New York City for a consultation, because that's part of what I do in life is consult with schools. And at that school, I met the toughest, single most rigid, unyielding head of school that I have ever encountered in my 15 years of consulting. She was tough. And as I toured her school and met with the teachers, listened to what they had to say, observed in the classrooms, kind of dug into every single nook and cranny that there was in the school, it dawned on me that not only were there problems in the school that was going to prevent me from recommending full recognition for the school, but that I was also in for a fight from this head of school. And I'm not a fighter. I just want to be liked. I want everybody to get along. That's really what my nature is, to really want everybody to get along. But I knew going into this meeting that I needed to be really present to my commitment to serving the school. And literally, I'm standing outside of her door. My hand is raised to knock on the door, and I'm taking breaths. I'm preparing myself, and I'm remembering what I've learned about my emotions and how important they are and how to regulate them. And I'm remembering everything I've learned about telling the truth. And, I'm remembering all these lessons that I've learned in not just the academic portions of our program, but also in the social emotional intelligence lab that we are continuing to do here. So I go into this office. I sit down with her face to face. We're, pretty close to each other. And I deliver the news that there are problems in the school and I'm not going to be able to make a recommendation for the school. And sure enough, this woman explodes into my face. She's screaming so vehemently that there is spit kind of coming out of her mouth and landing on my face. And my kind of typical response would be to cower, to make nice. But I knew that there was something bigger here that I needed to do. And so I said, look, I've got an hour. And you are welcome to use that hour to yell at me if that's how you want to use it. Or we can roll our sleeves up together and we can resolve these problems. And then I can make a recommendation for you. And it stopped her dead in her tracks. I think my presence with myself, my ability to regulate what was going on inside of me, my awareness of my fear, also my ability to communicate very truthfully with her and tell her just exactly what was so, allowed us to be able to work together, figure out solutions to each one of these problems. And as soon as she was able to certify that the problems had been handled, I was able to make a full recommendation for them. And I never would have done that before. I would have been way too committed to being, to being nice. But what I realized in the long run is that being effective is what I really cared about, that it wasn't about being liked, that serving, making sure the school is as excellent as it could possibly be, was really what mattered to me. And I credit the education that I got in this program to really being able to serve schools. And the recommendations that I get these days, or they're not recommendations, the reviews that I get these days, they say Lisa is the most effective consultant who's ever come to our school. Lisa understood the entirety of the school, not just the small pieces. And so I'm really proud of that. And I give total credit to this particular program for allowing me to be a very, very effective consultant. So that's from a scholar practitioner's point of view and a participant's point of view. And I think I now want to turn it over to Gordon, and he's, I think, going to go into some details about some of the academic aspects of what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was a very moving story, and I really appreciate the demonstration that you make about our education. I'm just going to talk for like a few minutes here about three main points about the EDD dissertation that we do and how it contributes to consciousness-based learning. The first thing I want to say is the dissertation is much more than an academic research project. It's about the development of the student as a person, about their becoming their best, most authentic selves as they pursue a project to make a difference in the world. I'll use the example of a current EDD student right now at MIU who's about to finish her dissertation, Pam Noble. She's going to be defending her dissertation, in fact, next month. Her dissertation is a study of unconscious bias, As you all know, unconscious bias is about how we view people different from ourselves as inferior. The training she delivered last month as part of her EDD project, dissertation project, helped business leaders and HR professionals become more aware of their bias and how they shift their perspective, how they can shift their perspectives. There isn't time here to go into her full developmental story. Suffice it to say that she grew up as a person of color in an all-white suburb of Chicago, and she came to recognize how unconscious bias shaped her whole sense of identity. During her training, participants began to acknowledge that they understood each other differently with greater compassion, something that rarely happens in standard HR diversity trainings. In all the EDD dissertations I've supervised over the past 14 years, this is a common theme. The transformation of the student enables them to facilitate more significant change in others. The second point I want to make is that the ED dissertation typically includes a design and implementation of an intervention in an organizational context. As Mike mentioned, it differs from a PhD dissertation in that the purpose is applied research rather than theoretically oriented original research. We're seeing our current MIU EDD students in our current cohort discuss potential projects such as coaching interventions to enhance student retention at MIU, or designing a training to enable participants to clarify their life purpose. They are learning to engage in evidence-based practice to generate observable, measurable results. The third main point about the EDD dissertation is that it's also a demonstration of the student's development as a scholar practitioner. They learn to critically review research articles related to their field. They learn to generate their own research through their dissertation study. And they demonstrate a mastery of fundamental research principles and practices, including quantitative, qualitative, and mixed method approaches and use of validated outcome measures. So in summary, the EDD dissertation is about consciousness-based education, becoming scholar practitioners as they focus on their own development and learning to facilitate the growth and learning of others. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to Mike to open up the floor for questions and discussion of what you've been hearing today. And thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add here is that I think our ED students would all say this, the depth of caring and knowing each other is at least an order of magnitude greater, and has been incredibly fulfilling for people, as it has been for me. So it's been lovely. So let's hear any questions. Questions or comments.
Is if we aren't interested in obtaining an EDD, but interested in some of the courses, are we able to take or audit any of those classes?
First of all, I formally don't know the answer to it. My answer is probably at this present time, no. We clearly have a cohort process that is going very beautifully, that continues to build from one course to the other. So I think probably not at the present time, but I know I certainly have a desire to bring this into the university, and have been talking to various leaders about where else we can bring this in to continue to make a difference. We've talked about, possibly into the master's. There are other places that we can be bringing this in, because it makes such a difference in the world.
Hey, Mike, we've got a question. Can you share the design of the program in terms of how long students are engaged in learning and preparing before choosing a dissertation topic? I'm quite interested and inspired.
I'm thrilled that you're interested and inspired.
Me too.
So it's a 2.5-year program. The last half year, the last 6 months is where you're really doing your dissertation. We invite people from the very beginning to be thinking about it. One of the things that we do is we've encouraged people to have one-on-one conversations with us about what topics might be. So we want people thinking about it from the very beginning, but you really don't have to choose literally for 2 years. But we want you because in the after 18 months, you're actually starting to take courses in dissertation research and so on, so that you're going to be working towards working towards the idea. So we want you engaging in the concept because this is not just about theoretical learning. This is about making a difference in the world and really applying yourself. Great question.
Hey, Mike, I want to just respond to Ravi. We don't understand the F1 status visas. That would be a question more for the administrative side of the school. That's not a question any of the three of us can answer. So I hope you get that answered.
Okay, here's another question. Can the EDD be done concurrently with our ongoing MIU program, or does it have to be done on its own? It is a full-time program. You do have to have a master's degree in order to do it. There's not any theoretical reason why, if you already have a master's degree and you're getting a second master's degree or something else, that you couldn't do the EDD at the same time. But it's a pretty, it's a pretty comprehensive program we have. So I would question doing it, but theoretically, it's not impossible if you already have a master's degree.
We have a question from Monica, which is, how has this program changed since being adopted at MIU from how it was structured and delivered at Wright University? I understand that the requirement to learn and practice TM, but is there anything else that will be different?
Yeah, we've actually the three of us meet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday every week, and we are redeveloping the curriculum to improve it. Also, when we were doing it at our old university, we did it basically on a one full weekend a month. Here we're doing it, we just have 2 hours on the weekend, and we have class on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We've really redesigned the program based on the same underlying curriculum, but really adapting it to the block system, and at the same time also integrating, so it's not just having people meditate, but also integrating it with the science of creative intelligence, because it usually adds to the richness of what we're doing and people seeing it. So yes.
All right, Mike, we've got another question. Can you provide more details about the structure and the format of the program? What specific intervention and research skills will participants develop?
So the basic form of the program, which I just said, is that we have class, 2 hours of class, 2 days a week. And then we have on the weekend, we have a 2-hour, we're calling an SEI lab. Our whole first semester, we're having things you're reading, we're discussing it in class. There's a if you send us so Zwell at miu.edu, we will get to you a curriculum map of the program, which we can do. But right now, for example, we are in a 4-block session of really learning coaching. And we're having a coaching lab every week. We're having content every week. People are coaching 4 or 5 people every other week over this 16-week period. So people are actually learning how to coach and bringing their issues in and learning about it. So there's a whole hugely applied piece. There are 2 blocks next year that are also in the second year that are in it. So it's a combination of experiential and actual practice and understanding theory.
Mike, I'd like to just add a piece to that too. And David, thank you for your question. The students also in this coaching course are learning to document and look at patterns in their coaching interactions so that they begin to see, well, what's the outcome of my intervention in any particular interaction, and what does the client, how do they evolve or develop or not based on what I'm doing? So they're every week are looking at the skill set of being able to observe the effects and outcomes of their interventions. So they're beginning, they develop as scholar practitioners by being reflective practitioners. And then the research courses help them refine that as they do more specific structured research on different intervention projects that they design in their dissertation project. So it's a very much practice-based process of reflective learning focused on outcomes of intervention. So I hope that.
Thank you. I want to underline what Vicky put in the chat. So you cannot do this program along with another program, and it is a follow-up program to the MBA or actually two of the master's programs at MIU. So it's a natural follow-up. Although you don't have to have one of those programs, you can do it from any master's program.
Mike, there's another question. Can you give us some examples of the work that was done from Wright Graduate University with corporations where the Ed.D team took the lead?
Most of our dissertations that we did involve people doing trainings that related to social and emotional intelligence to whatever their world was. So it was more, it wasn't so much of corporate interventions, but actually, so for example, the woman who is now the head of development, director, the vice president of development for this hospital system, she did a training on individual responsibility for people in the fundraising profession. So she took her profession and she trained the people who are in her profession across many different organizations to maximize their effectiveness. That's more what our people did to really, truly make a difference in their organizations. One of our current doctoral students is doing it. He actually did it on educators in the Philippines and around the subject of how to deal with trauma in schools. So it's affected as well. Question, isn't this connected to this isn't connected to the life and wellness degree program at all? We're in the School of Business. That doesn't mean you have to be in business to do this, but we are a part of the School of Business. And by the way, this applies, everywhere. Our old university and MIU is part of the IACBE, which is a business education credentialing organization. That's how we originally got connected. How does this program incorporate ethical principles, including those rooted in traditional teachings, into its leadership and coaching frameworks? I'm not sure exactly how to answer this question because it's integral. It's like a fish in water. It is so, I don't know how to answer how it's incorporated because it's in the essence of what we do. And Vicky answered, yes, it's completely separate from the undergraduate life and wellness coaching program. And it was what we learned about there are many different aspects to coaching. We are fortunate now in our master's program, for the first time, we have a sports coach, which is, I'm thrilled to have her here. And she's applying our principles into the world of, she's a fantastic basketball coach. And so bringing that in, a basketball coach teaches by very nature, you teach the skills, right? You teach how to play basketball. But in addition, to hold basketball as a vehicle for the emergence of these girls is profound and sacred.
Mike, there's a question that I don't know what it means. Are there GA opportunities for distance learners? I'm not sure what GA means.
Can anybody tell us what GA means?
Graduate assistant, got it.
Oh, okay. Not at the present time. But this is a hybrid program. Actually, it's a program that is fully online except for two residential weekends. And there can be a workaround for that for international students.
Mike, I'd like to return to that question about the position of our coaching program relative to the general coaching programs at MIU. And just to let the question person know, this is just the first semester or second semester of our introduction of the coaching program that we use, which is very consciousness-based and being-based. So we're anticipating this being a very unique contribution of MIU to the coaching world, and looking at creating a more unified coaching approach throughout the university. But this is very much at the beginning phase right now. Just to let you know, though, that this is something that we are discussing.
Can we administer standardized tests to MIU students with some compensation? In 1981, I tested over 50 MIU students on critical thinking and open-mindedness, which took about 45 minutes. As a coach, I would like to help people develop CT and OM. Critical thinking is critical. Open-mindedness.
Mm-hmm. We're totally with you on that, Rick. Go ahead, Mike, but I think that's a great project.
There's a way that all that we're doing is teaching critical thinking from one perspective. And by the way, any research that's done as a part of this program has to go through the Institutional Review Board, the IRB, through the university, to ensure that all people in any kind of that are involved are treated well. So absolutely critical thinking is very, very important.
Mike, here's a question you're going to love. Is it not possible to integrate key aspects of EDD into MIU programs?
I sure hope so.
Mhm.
I mean, this is my personal mission, is to make, this is the difference in the world that I think I am making and want to make. So I'm looking for every way we can. I mean, we have identified 3 of our graduate students who could become potential faculty. We have other faculty that we're looking to bring in. Well, I'd like to bring this in so many places to make a difference. I've started talking to people. You can have a non-degree, non-credit program, certificate programs. There are all kinds of things that we can do to make a difference, because these skills are just so precious and, to me, sacred. How does a program facilitate networking opportunities with alumni, practitioners, and leaders in diverse fields? I love the question, and we're at the very beginning of this, so I can't answer it. But right now there are 3 of us pulling the load. As this grows, hopefully we can expand this and in all the ways you're talking about. So I'm totally behind it.
And Ravi is asking, how can I enroll in the program as an international student? Ravi, I would suggest you contact the admissions department. We would love to have you. And I don't know the ins and outs of international students.
For this, I can answer it. All the F1 students need to have the civic list program. And this EDD program is on the process to apply for this civic. We are just on the waiting stage to receive the approval. So I will say that again, we already applied this EDD program to the civic for the international students. And right now we are on the stage to waiting for the government reply.
Thanks, Ayako.
Okay, we probably have time for maybe one question more, if anybody has any. Well, I in the absence of that, I'd like to thank you for your time and your participation in your questions and you know, well, one of the things that's been very fulfilling is that after 2 or 3 months, we had students say that this has changed their life. And if we're not changing lives, there's no reason to, not much reason to want to do this from my perspective. Because obviously we're after the difference that we can make in the world and people really truly having the sense of what's possible for themselves and the difference they can make in the world. So thank you all very much. Totally appreciate your coming. And let the word know about others as well so that we can make the difference we can make.